This was an interesting one because I didn't explicitly say it, but I did put in here that Sidney Crosby was going to break a record. Who's going to vote for it? And it ended up winning the poll. So let's go to it now. Which is most likely to happen in the 2024-25 season? The fans voted, 32% of them, Sidney Crosby to score 100-plus points, which just so happens to be an NHL record for most points scored by a 37-year-old, which is Joe Sakic with 100 points in 2006, 2007. Now, what did people think that is more likely to happen than? Erik Karlsson scoring 50-plus assists, 27% of the vote. I believe he's done that 4 or 5 times in his 16-year career. Brian Rust to score 30-plus goals. He has never done that, but he got 25% of the vote. And Tristan Jarry to have over a .910 save percentage, only 16% of the vote. So I ask you, Horwat, which of these scenarios is most likely to happen this season?
So I know the crowd went with the Crosby one.
Yes.
And we just had a discussion about Jarry. Who knows what exactly happens there? I'm kind of torn between the middle two.
Mm-hmm.
I want to lean more toward Rust than I do Karlsson. But when you look at, I'll start with Karlsson for a minute. He had 45 assists last year. And we're discussing him getting 50. It's only 5 more.
Mm-hmm.
And we are expecting him to have a better season. We would have been expecting to have a better season even if the Penguins didn't add an old friend in Quinn behind the bench. So maybe that's possible.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that option. But I'm going to give Brian Rust the edge here because it is hard to get 5 more assists, even if that's sort of the name of his game almost. Brian Rust had 28 goals last year and arguably would have hit 30 had he not missed 20 games.
Yeah.
He needed 2 more. I think I get old Brian Rust, young Brian Rust, early career Brian Rust, what I'm trying to say. Was a bit streakier. I think me and you have had discussions on that many a time whenever he went on long scoreless droughts and then had a hat trick to break it.
Yeah.
This new Brian Rust, as he ages, is a little bit more consistent. I think that sort of those stretches of long, paces and long games without scoring are gone and behind him. If he can play near 82, over 78, something like that, he can probably hit 30, no problem.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to give that one my vote of confidence because it just seems the most likely. It seems like it should have happened already, especially. And listen, we all have faith in Sidney. All 3 of those, the Crosby, Rust, and Karlsson stat lines are all extremely possible.
Mm-hmm.
We all have confidence that all 3 of those can happen.
Mm-hmm.
But if I had to pick a most likely, it's going to be Brian Rust. Also, man, I have no faith in Tristan Jarry.
Yeah, I think most people don't. I'm surprised he got up to 16%. And those of you that did, I want what you're smoking because, that is a lot of copium right there, thinking he's going to have over a .910 save percentage. But I will agree that the top 3, Crosby, Karlsson, and Rust, are obviously much more likely. And honestly, I will say this. I expect Karlsson to have 50-plus assists. I expect Rust to have 30-plus goals for 2 reasons for Brian Rust. That one is a little bit, I think Karlsson, you can get 5 more assists. If the power play is a modicum of consistent, then he is already over 50 assists this year. And we expect him to be good in year 2 and Quinn and all of that. You covered that well. Brian Rust, 2 reasons. 1, Jake Gensel is gone. Brian Rust is winger numero uno. He is the top winger for this team. He is the top option on the wing. He is the guy this year. That should get him some more opportunities to score. And like you mentioned, he's been more consistent in recent years. And number 2, Brian Rust had 3 power play goals last year, 25 even strength goals. Actually, did he have a shorthanded? That might be a little different. He did have 1 shorthanded goal. So 24 even strength goals last season. Those are ridiculous numbers. If he gets an opportunity on the power play to get even double 6 power play goals this year. And as you mentioned, if he stays healthy, I think it's a foregone conclusion in my eyes that he finally gets to that 30 goal mark. This is the 3rd straight season that I've been saying that. That was my bold prediction 2 years ago. That was my bold prediction last year. And I keep getting, stung by it. 2 years ago, he just struggled. Last year, it was the injuries. But I will say it again. Brian Rust will score 30 this year. I believe it. I think he is certainly a 30-goal scorer in talent and capabilities. Can he stay on the ice is the only question in my eyes, because I think everything else is set up perfectly for him to go over that 30 mark.
It's got to happen at some point.
It does. Does not, actually. But, you'd hope it does. You'd hope it does. And as for Crosby, I mean, we brought up the list earlier, and we were discussing it. To be in the top 12 of points scored at the age of 37, it is something that he typically does, which is over 71 points, which is Daniel Alfredsson at 12th. But you look at the names up there. Sakic, 100 points at the age of 37. Mario Lemieux had 91. Wayne Gretzky had 90. Joe Pavelski had 81. Underrated, sneaky good season for a 37-year-old. Another name on there, Alex Ovechkin, who's tied for 10th with Gordie Howe at 75. So, I mean, that's a list we'll keep track of this season. But honestly, 100 points is tough. Yeah. 100 points is tough, even though there are more people doing it now than there ever have been before, it seems like, every single year. Crosby's had two very, very good seasons back to back. And I understand he hasn't had a lot of help, and you're hoping he has more this year. But he's had two very good seasons, and he's finished in the lower to mid 90s. Can he push over that hump? Can the power play get him over the hump? Potentially. But I think I'm leaning towards either Carlson or Rust. And honestly, I'll put my vote on Rust to score 30-plus goals.
Yeah, if the Penguins had a rocking power play, all three of those would have been hit last year. Just randomly saying that.
Yeah, no, you're probably right. Not that Rust was on the power play a lot, but he probably would have gotten more opportunities just in general.
Yeah, I think the way they shuffled it, let's say it was clicking and they were still shuffling it as much as they did for some reason. Mm-hmm. Then yeah, he's obviously going to get those opportunities because he was still out there. He was still on power play too, at least for quite a bit of the season. Yeah. So even if that contributes, it's 2 goals too. He finds a way. He was the closest one. Crosby had 94 points. He was 6 away from 100. Get a couple of power play points in there and you got it. Mm-hmm. Erik Karlsson, if he was quarterbacking a nice power play, there go a couple more goals right there. So get the power play working, and all those things should figure itself out. Once again, sorry to Tristan Jarry. I
mean, go out there and prove us wrong. That's exactly all I'll say. Not that our opinion means anything to him. Not that he's going to even hear it, but that's what mode he should be in going into this season. I want to prove everybody wrong because everybody's doubting me, and I will say everybody is doubting you except for 16% of the fan base. So shout out to that 16% again. You guys have a lot of positive energy, and I strive to be that someday.